All right. The president has been moving around the country, being hosted on radio talk shows across the country. He went to Kabale, went to Fort Portal. As of yesterday, he was in Masaka. And he's talking about land. So this morning, we want to look at this gospel that's being preached by the president. But even more importantly, clearly dust has not settled on this proposal to amend the constitution regarding land, Article 26. Let's talk a bit about this. And who better to address these matters than Honorable Betty Amongi? She is the Minister for Lands. Good morning, Honorable.
Good morning, and good morning those who are viewing.
We also have with us Honorable Wilfred Niwagaba. He is a lawyer, but he's also the Member of Parliament for Ndorwa East. Good morning, Honorable. How are you?
Shadow Attorney General.
Shadow Attorney General.
Yes.
Those are serious positions. Do you people work, by the way?
Yeah, we do work, don't
Quite,
you see?
because you have a budget, I know.
Not quite. But
yes, you have a budget, however small, it's there.
No, we do
He
work.
has a lot of money.
No,
All right, I hope you are accountable, because as we hold these people accountable, we should be holding you accountable too.
The budget is for the office of the leader of opposition. Our specific ministries as shadow ministers, we do not have.
The last I checked, you people were getting, is it 500,000 shillings as additional allowance?
Yeah,
every month.
No,
Yes.
it's not that.
It's more?
Oh, it's more, even more than a minister.
Ah.
Yes, by the
Of
way,
course that
Parliament
way.
pays more than the executive. Even
So are you paid as
they get more money
from
than
Parliament or the executive?
No, I'm talking of that top-up.
No.
They get more than a
Not
minister.
really.
Anyway, one of these days
So
we
it's
shall
very
hold
comfortable.
you shadow cabinet people, and you tell us what it is that you're doing with this good money. Let's dig in. Honorable Amongi, the president is on a roll. He's moving around, and some people feel that's an indictment on you, the Minister for Lands, the other ministers that you work with, and every technocrat. You have failed to sell the president's agenda, and he has decided, let me do this myself. What happened along the way?
One, I think that is wrong. The president is the chief executive of this country constitutionally. He looked for the votes. People voted him as the chief executive of this country. And therefore, you know that many of you have misrepresented the bill.
Many of us.
Many
I saw
of
the president
you.
in one of the dailies today is warning the media.
Yes, because you are the ones who carry the message, and if you carry the message wrongly, even when you have read it, conceptualize it, but continue to carry the message in a wrong perspective, you must be held accountable, and it's within the legal framework that media should report, broadcast accurately. Therefore, what has happened and what had happened is that most people had coined this land amendment bill as the president wants to grab land. Government wants to grab land, when indeed it's not true. We already know very well that this is a constitutional matter. It's already in the Constitution. Article 26 already provides for compulsory land acquisition, and yet other people were still going ahead up to now to state that this particular bill is for compulsory acquisition. This particular bill is about getting private land for government to give to private investors. So this misrepresentation, which attacked the president personally, and most of the people, social media, most of the elite class went personal on the president as a person and as a president of this country. So he is right to go to the people to put the record straight, and also to let the people understand that there is already a law that exists. This particular provision is only to deal with disputes. When disputes arises in respect to quantum, what happens? And that is the only small matter being dealt with. So I would have expected serious people to discuss whether the bill is necessary, which particular law to amend, which people have left the substance of the debate and gone to the personal attack and misrepresentation of the bill.
Let me get to Honorable Niwagaba, and as I do, I'm looking at page 6 of the Daily Monitor. Let me quote the president here. He says, as government, we cannot allow such activities to continue. It's upon this that all media houses should stand warned against providing false information through hosting people opposing the land reforms. So, Honorable Niwagaba, by hosting you,
you are committing a crime.
But of course here, we have decided to disobey because we think it's important that everybody's views are out there.
People's views
those
must
that
be
support the president and those that don't. it's important.
Yes.
Tell me, when you see the president moving around, is this a difficult agenda to sell?
You know, Honorable Betty has said people have misrepresented the bill. This is a 3 clauses bill. And the import of that bill, particularly, is to amend Article 26 in respect of the responsibility of government, which has a right under Article 26 to compulsorily acquire land. But that right has specific conditions. There are 2 conditions. One, that must compulsorily acquire land for specific purposes mentioned in the Constitution. 2, and most importantly, and this is where we disagree, that before it acquires that land compulsory, it must pay prompt, fair, and adequate compensation. Now, Honorable Betty Amongi's bill with the president is to go away from that concept of payment of prompt, fair, and adequate compensation to say where there is a dispute on what is fair and adequate, it deposits the money in the court and takes over the land. Now, our position is, if you bring a clause in that respect, in those terms, you are essentially undermining the core essence of, 1, the right to property, 2, the obligation of the state towards the citizen who has that right to property. Yes, you can compulsorily acquire, but comply with the constitutional provisions. I have heard the Honorable Betty and the President talk about, you see, government is being frustrated by people demanding large sums of money, by doing all sorts of things. That issue is easy to settle without touching our Constitution. And she knows that very well.
Honorable Amongi, as you come in, I'll again refer you to the Daily Monitor. Page 1 of the Daily Monitor. Investor quits Naguru Satellite City project. This is something we embarked on 10 years ago. People were evicted from Naguru because a project that was going to develop them, their lives, and be of great benefit to our country was coming into play. 10 years later, the investor has pulled out. You know why? The investor says Ugandans are too poor, they cannot afford the luxury homes that he wanted to put in place. And there goes another of those where people were evicted. Not too far from this place. There's a place called Shimoni. There was a school. Those children and the teachers thereon were evicted. Why? Because we were putting up a hotel for Chogam. That was 10 years ago. To date, you know what's happening there. And so when you go around and you're telling people, look, we want as government to bring projects. And so to have those projects in place, that's why we want to acquire your land. So make it easy. If you don't, we shall remove you, use the law. But there's examples of government having evicted people and nothing has happened. How then do you make a case for this which you're trying to sell currently?
First of all, I want to state that those are 2 opposite comparisons. It doesn't apply in the context of what we are discussing.
It's an example which works very well.
It is not an example that works well, because what we are dealing with in the amendment is compulsory acquisition of private property, private land for public infrastructure. What you're talking about in the context of Shimoni and Naguru, Nakawa, is a government land that government has all the legal provision of dealing with it and giving it to private investors with conditions. And indeed, when they were given with conditions. And since that time, there are issues that government has had with the investors. That's why the Nakawa side of that project was given to Aga Khan for a university hospital. The lower side, which had an obligation of government to for the investor together with government to ensure that the tenants who were there, their low-cost houses were built and they are given first priority to purchase. Those are negotiations that we have been going on. So I do not want to base on the paper. These investors have not communicated officially to government. I'm not going to comment on it, but on the context of land acquisition, that is a government land with government having all the rights on dealing with it legally.
No, but you see,
Going
the reason
back-
I use this as an example, Honorable,
Yes.
is just to show that, because you see here you're saying we want to remove you quickly. You know, so if you don't want our compensation, we put it in court for us to take over the land. And there's record of government not moving, whether it is a project that it's backing or with an investor, because the investors many times will say government has frustrated us.
You see, for
but that shows you where people say, but wait a minute, you remove us quickly and nothing happens. What's the rush?
I think what we should be discussing is for the roads, railways, and all the public infrastructure that are defined under Article 26 as government failed. What percentage and for what rationale did it fail? And for that particular debate is what is before us, and that is the same misrepresentation that both the media and the public has been confusing acquisition of land under Article 26 with government dealing with private investors. When government deals with private investor, it's a different legal regimes. It has nothing to do with those specified under Article 26. Now, to go back on the issue Honorable Nwagaba raised, that Article 26 permits government to compulsorily acquire with the condition. We are not removing those conditions. The proposal is actually saying that once a chief government valuer, which is the legal provision now that the person who is supposed to determine what is fair and adequate under the law is the chief government valuer.
No.
So what government,
I disagree.
just a moment, let me finish. Current law which I implement, the 1965 Land Acquisition Act,
Exactly.
says that the minister appoints an assessor, which is the chief government valuer. That assessor is supposed to go and assess your land, what is on land, the property thereon, and put a quantum on it. What has been happening once this quantum has been put, and I also don't want to say it is generalized issue that is happening everywhere. It is actually most of the elite class are the one who go to court. We have had very little problems with the local people who, when the chief government valuer gives the value, in most circumstances, the value of the chief government valuer is more than what is the market value in any particular area. For example, what is considered when the chief government valuer is valuing is number one, the land. Number two, crops and trees and whatever is on land. Number three, development on the land. Number four, if government has given you below 6 months to vacate, there will be a 15%, 30% disturbance allowance. If you've been given more than 6 months, it's a 30% disturbance allowance. Then if you have any investment, like a factory, like a business, we calculate loss of business for 3 to 5 years based on your account. Now, who else in the private sector can buy land in that? So we have not had problems with majority of Ugandans. However, with the big infrastructure that are coming in on board, the oil pipeline, standard gauge railways, where we want to industrialize and move infrastructure, delay, whether by 2 or 3 people, will stop government from moving. And that's why we are saying we are not removing the aspect of prompt fare. We shall do the quantum, pay you. However, the proposal we already have, which we have put in the amendment of the Land Acquisition Act, is that within 60 days, the dispute should have been resolved within the courts of law. And the proposal is to put up a tribunal which will, if you have a problem with money that I've already paid you, but what we are saying, immediately we pay you, let government start the work.
All right.
However,
the lawyer disagreed with you earlier on.
yes, however, within 6 months, if you want a top-up, we must have resolved your issues, disposed it, and given you a top-up. So this is a win-win situation. We are supposed to...
Do you agree?
Exactly. You see, this is what I was telling Honorable Betty, my friend, and others. Article 26 of the Constitution tells the government to bring a law on compulsory land acquisition. Remember, this constitution was promulgated in 1995, but the government is still operating under the 1965 law that was passed by her late father-in-law's government. Now, if your issue is on how do you resolve a dispute on quantum, on the amount, you do not need to amend the Constitution. Bring a law under Article 26 for compulsory acquisition. That law must comply with the parameters set by the Constitution. Then the rest can be done. Actually, what they are talking about is mere procedure. You do not touch the fundamental aspects of the Constitution to address procedural matters. So the law you should bring, and I wish you could bring it even tomorrow, is the amended version of the Land Acquisition Act. And then we look at it. But as far as we are concerned, based on the current bill that you brought and presented in Parliament, you are undermining all fundamental aspects of the right to property, undermining the fundamental aspects of the right to fair hearing, as far as your proposal to deposit money in a court.
That one has already been dropped.
Oh, fine.
The issue of depositing money in a court, where so we are now, is, as a lawyer, is after paying of the quantum by the chief government valuer, we take possession.
Can you tell
continue the work?
Can you give us the current bill you have? If you've already developed another bill, bring it and we discuss it.
So what I am asking of you, because also we get advice from very many other lawyers, is that the principle of taking possession after paying the quantum determined by the chief government valuer and then resolve within 6 months. There are lawyers who are disagreeing that that cannot be done within the enabling law.
And that's why you talk about the tribunal.
And there are those, no. You see, there are two issues here. The first issue is that when chief government valuer has given a quantum and say, your land is 10 million, the proposed principle is that we pay the 10 million to everybody, even for you who has disagreed. We pay everybody the 10 million. We take possession and start the work. Now, for somebody who has disagreed on the quantum, while we are working, you then be given a tribunal as a first court of instance, 30 days, and then additional 30 days if you want to appeal, and the appeal stops at High Court. Now, where we are having difference opinion within the lawyers is that there are lawyers who are saying you cannot put in the Land Acquisition Act the principle of paying compensation, the quantum determined by chief government valuer, and take possession while this person is pursuing the top-up.
Absolutely, because what's the rush, Honorable? Because you see, if you're saying that you want to buy my land, your government valuer is saying...
It's not about buying. Under compulsory acquisition, it's not buying.
You see, when you're paying me, you're buying, just in layman's language, yeah? So you're saying, your valuer says my land is worth 50 million shillings. Me, my valuer, and me, I'm saying it's worth 100 million shillings. You're saying, no, our valuer says 50, so we give you the 50, we take possession. What's the rush? How about we first remedy? Because the land belongs to me. So let's first finish the court process. If you're saying it's too long, expedite it. Let's make sure the wheels of justice move quickly until we agree. But you see, for you to take the land and then we agree later, there's a problem.
You see,
it's not about agreeing.
Let's just allow him
you see, the challenge with this government is one. It does first things last. If you properly plan and you've carried out a feasibility plan, you've done your design of, let's say, the road network, the railway line, the second thing you should do is engage on the process of land acquisition. You don't start bringing contractors construct a road or a railway line before you have acquired the land. Now, the principle of payment of prompt, fair, and adequate compensation is literally on me, whose land you are taking, because you are compulsory acquiring it. So if your value determines that what is fair is this, and my valuer says what is fair is this, that's why we have an arbiter. The arbiter will be either that court or the tribunal, as you said, which becomes the expert of experts. And finally determine, because you are still in the process of land acquisition, you are not up to implementation stage. Why the rush? Allow the private land owner to also have a say that, yes, this is the value I have. If your government feel that the value the private land owner is asking is too high, go to court, go to the tribunal to determine what is fair and adequate. After court or tribunal has determined, and you can specify a time frame within which to do it, even limit the appeal process, pay and take possession.
Isn't that what's fair, Honorable Amongi?
No,
That
you see,
if there is a problem, a disagreement, the land remains mine until we resolve it in court.
Exactly.
So run to court, make sure the process is quick. If I lose in court, that's all right.
for me, the debate is open. As the debate is open,
But your
what I
president
want,
is saying don't
what I
stop.
want, no, what I want people to understand is that under compulsory acquisition, it is not willing seller, willing buyer. No, that is why it is put as compulsory acquisition.
But there is prompt,
Just
fair,
a moment.
and adequate
Yes,
compensation.
yes, and we do not intend to tamper with those principles.
So can you withdraw the
No.
constitutional
Let
amendment
me
bill?
finish what the principle here is that once I sign a gazette, a declaration as a minister that this land is required for public purpose, under the law, your interest converts to a claim. It is no longer that you can refuse. Your interest converts to a claim. Now, for me, as someone who is implementing...
Which law is that?
No, yes.
Which law are you talking about?
I'm talking about the 1995 Constitution,
And
which talks about the principle of compulsory acquisition, and immediately a declaration is made by the minister.
Under which law?
The Land
see,
Acquisition
that
Act,
land
the Land
acquisition
Act,
of
even the Land
1965
Act, Honorable, even the
must
Land
be
Act.
read in the light of the 1995
Because the
Constitution.
Constitution
That
is supreme.
Supreme and it
Exactly.
even came later.
And that's why, under the Constitution, the principle of compulsory acquisition is still there.
Yes.
And the ruling of the Constitutional Court and Supreme Court, in the case of Irumba and UNRA, the judges made it very clear. If you read that judgment, the judges of both the Constitutional Court and Supreme Court stated clearly that once government makes a declaration, your claim, your interest turns into a claim. To claim what is the right quantum is not about rejecting. That is what is in that ruling. Therefore, for me, what I'm saying as government is that you no longer have an interest in the property. Your interest is the amount of money to be paid.
Yes,
so
and I'm
whether we
saying, let it
no,
come
let me
afterwards.
finish.
Why does the
Let me
Constitution
finish.
talk of
That's why
prior
I'm saying.
taking
That's
possession?
why I'm saying, if I pay you what the chief government valuer has valued, and I take possession, and I'm still willing.
What's the rush?
No,
why are you rushing
I'm
to
also
take
asking
possession?
you because in
Because it's
most
my
of-
land, so it cannot be a rush on my part. So let me retain my land. You go to court and
the-
resolve it
And
there.
the
Not
Constitution
even you
says
going to
prior,
court.
prior to taking possession by you, pay me prompt, fair, and
And
adequate
And
compensation.
that is why I'm saying
when
the
you say
debate-
when you make a declaration that what remains with me is a claim, no.
A
It is
claim
yes, a claim,
over your
but that
interest
claim
on
is,
the land
is
and-
authenticated by my continued possession and occupation until
now.
you've paid
Now,
me
what-
what
what-
is fair and adequate.
Okay, so what I'm stating here, the need for the law
Is
is,
to,
is, is,
to remove.
just a moment, let me finish my point, is what we should be debating. And that is why the president had to go, because instead of debating what we are debating here, substance of the bill, some of you are going saying the bill is for land grabbing. Why don't you bring the substance of the argument that
You actually
that
the
we are
first to mention
debating
the
now?
word land grabbing today.
No, it's not. It is not. It is everywhere on the social media. Don't run away from it.
No, I'm talking about
Some
here
of
at
you,
least.
yes, because I'm justifying. You are saying why is the president moving around? Because it is you, the elite class, who actually benefit from the tendency of hiking the price, who are coming up and distorting the law. If you were to actually tell the local people about what this particular law is, they would have no problem. Because I know in many circumstances where local governments get free land from local people to do feeder roads. Which feeder roads in a local government do you pay for? Very many give their land because they know this feeder road we are accessing with the hospital, we are accessing with this. So
why the controversy now?
So then why do you refuse?
Exactly.
Why do you oppose?
Why-
If also you know that, why do you oppose
why-
the principle that I pay you, let work continue, this work is not mine, it is for you to benefit, And I'm still willing to listen
Can
to
you-
you
can you
and
now know-
add you more money if court says so.
You've actually rightly stated, in most of the areas, people have given away their land for government to carry out projects, even before payment is effected, and at times for free. Despite the existence of this particular article, why do you now want to withdraw that constitutional safeguard of prompt, fair and adequate compensation prior to taking over my land?
That
Honorable,
one is not,
let's see
that
how
one
we
is
help
not
government.
being,
Let me just stick with you
that
for a
one
moment.
is not
Yes.
being withdrawn.
Big
It is
shots
left
like
there.
yourself, whether they be in government or whatever the case might be, but the elite people that have money and are very sharp and sometimes are privy to government's plannings, like you're an MP, I'm sure you know a bit about what government's planning.
We wouldn't
so you get
know
to
it.
know that
It is
there
actually
is
in the executive
a
which
pipeline
would
going
know.
to pass
Ah.
there. So you quickly run to the place, acquire that land, and when government comes to buy, you have shot up the price. And that's one of the issues that the president is
Yes,
raising.
yes.
How does that get addressed? Because you see, what that person does is wrong.
Exactly. Now, how do you address that? You do not address it in amending the current constitution. Because you see, if you have a proper law on compulsory land acquisition, it will set the principles and grounds under which government can compulsory acquire land. And those principles must fall within the parameters of Article 26 of the Constitution. 2, it will also address the procedure on how government acquires that land. It will also address the issue of disputes. What sort of disputes do you envisage, and how are those disputes resolved? As simple as that.
That law
And
exists.
you
The
do-
only
you
missing
do not
point
now
is
need
dispute.
to amend the constitution to do that, because actually what they're talking about is entirely procedural in nature. Dispute resolution when the issue of quantum arises. You do not need to touch Article 26 of the Constitution. If I were her, and I advised her, she knows, withdraw this constitutional amendment bill, bring a comprehensive land acquisition law that will detail issues like that one. If, for example, a person has bought land 2-3 years before, because he is in the government, he knows the project, a chief government valuer has assessed the value, he has also come up with his own valuation, the tribunal or the court can appoint an independent valuer from the valuation board to give a third opinion. And although these experts come up with reports, it is still up to the court to decide which of the 3, they could be varying valuations, which of the 3 should it take. It decides and the matter ends. Government, you pay and you take the land.
Honorable, my expectation is that government should be organized. You plan in advance. You know, for example, in 5 years' time, we should put a road here or that kind of thing. But what you're telling us is, it seems like you wake up as government and then you realize we need to put a road here. So you go for the land, no, you vacate quickly, go to court. In the meantime, work progresses.
No.
And I'm thinking, no, if you had planned prior, there should not be this confusion of get off, we are in a rush. No, you have planned, so you know this in advance. You get to the land. If there are issues, person retains the land, go to court. There's enough time. You talked of 60 days, 6 months at the most.
It could even
and
be
if
20
court
days.
gives it, you know, eventually, then this person goes. But when you say, we are going to come in, give you this money, if you don't want it, that's okay. Vacate, go to court. It shows that there was no planning, so everything is being done in a rush. And that's
You do
problematic.
not want me, the landowner, to have an input on the
actually,
valuation?
there is a very long procedure under the Land Acquisition Act. All those stated, the Land Acquisition Act talks about what defines what should be compulsorily acquired, which actually is in conformity with the Constitution. That one has no problem. The procedure is very clear. The only missing bit in the land acquisition is that particular aspect of dispute resolution and what type of dispute. Now, on the issue of planning, of course, we plan early, very early. For instance, now under the standard gauge railway, you have the oil. We're already doing planning. We're already doing mapping of the areas. We already, but there are several disputes that there are times you even, for example, towards the implementation of the project, you will be confronted by some of these disputes. Some are even internal families, not knowing who to receive, what share to receive. You leave them, you move ahead to plan to leave them to sort their problems. You come back, the problem has not been sorted. Then you go to a place and 90% have accepted the value. Then you have maybe 10 or 3, even 1% rejects the value. You move ahead, you think you will come back when the matter is resolved, and the worst problem we have now is the court system. Somebody will go to court when you have already planned, you have moved in that area, others have got the money, and you've seen examples that we have published in the paper, example that the president has been articulating, because the current court system, you cannot stop somebody from, you cannot force court to resolve a dispute within 2 years. There are court cases.
Put in place a tribunal, make the wheels of justice move
you
quicker.
asked me why now. You are saying we don't plan.
Maybe that's the problem you should be addressing.
I am now telling you what the problem is currently. You go to the this Entebbe highway. If it were we planned early, you reach there, somebody goes to court, gets an injunction, is one person, and the whole road for Entebbe Express Highway for 5 years you cannot because of one person.
Why do you begin on the road when you have not acquired the land?
That's what I'm telling you, is that the process of acquisition, the legal parameter, which should have resolved the matter quickly. That's why we are saying when there is dispute, let us address it.
Exactly.
Let me finish, because some of you have been saying government don't plan. Let me make this point. We plan. It is you, the elite class, the corrupt elite class, who are frustrating government.
The corrupt elite class.
Okay,
you think there's a land problem that is ongoing, and
yes.
People before it were accused of grabbing land, RDCs, and people in government.
Let me finish. So the planning we do is being hampered by dispute, and therefore this dispute we have no control as executive, because if someone rushes to court, and a court gives an injunction, and court's hearing takes 5 years. There we do not have control. That's why we want to remedy, and we brought a proposal to remedy where there is dispute on quantum. We have brought a proposal to remedy. And let me tell you, we have already a land acquisition bill.
Why don't you bring
it? When we brought the land acquisition bill, most of the lawyers were saying most of the issues you have put under dispute, where the proposal was take possession after paying the quantum, will be challenged in the Constitution. That's why the Attorney General, in his wisdom as a legal advisor, went to propose a constitutional amendment before we can bring in the Land Acquisition Act.
I would want to advise you, my friend.
So which is supreme? Because the Constitution remains supreme.
I would want to advise you.
That's why I'm saying, no, don't advise me.
No,
you have advised me enough. And I am,
and perhaps you need more advice.
No,
like the president who is saying, and most people who are opposed.
No.
Okay,
I know his position. And I'm also telling him, he's not the only lawyer. For me as a minister, I have the Attorney General who advises me. I have my bill. My bill is ready for presentation, but I have reached a dead end where there are advisors, the Attorney General, we also have advisors,
and you should listen to
other
all.
Lawyers.
Listen to citizens, representatives of citizens.
Why can't I finish? Now, if they tell me the principle we want to cure cannot be cured
which is
by
that
a subsidiary law.
Tell us which is that principle.
But I've already told you. The principle is if government is acquiring land, we reach a place and I have 10 people. 9 of you have said we agree with the quantum of 10 million. Pay us. The principle is pay all of the 10 million, take possession, let one person who has a dispute go to court, and I have put their tribunal, I have put their high court as the last cap of appeal. Within 60 days, your top-up is determined and I pay. So that is the principle.
You still maintain your position.
Let's allow him to come in.
Okay.
No.
Let's allow him. You have been speaking for a while.
No, let him first understand. He wants to understand the principle.
You see, this is the problem.
Now
this
for
is
you,
the problem between me and you, Honorable Betty.
It's not between you and me.
And you are legal advisors. The person who wants to compulsory acquire land is the government. This land belongs to me, a private citizen. And the Constitution says, yes, compulsory acquire, but before you take possession, pay me prompt, fair, and adequate compensation. That principle of fair and adequate compensation applies to me, whom you are paying. Now you want to unilaterally determine what is fair to you, but not fair to me. Then you also say, you take what is fair to you, not fair to me, and I rush to court. Why don't you yourself, who has determined what you think is fair to me and I've rejected it, go to court yourself for court
On
or
my own
tribunal
amount.
to determine.
On my own
So
amount.
why do you want me to
So it
spend
should be
even?
on his
It
amount?
is, yeah, no, if
Oh.
I have given you an amount
So
and you
why
have
do you-
rejected,
why do you
it is
want-
you who have
why
disputed,
do you-
it's
But
you
you
to
see,
go
both
to
of-
court.
Why do you want the government to be superior to the private person when before the tribunal court we are supposed to be equal? Actually, it is you who wants my land, who has made a unilateral decision on the value to give me, to rush to court
It's not
to say.
unilateral, by the way, because honorable,
because
if I
I've
tell
refused.
you,
No.
that I have gone somewhere and you are
I've-
10
I've told
and
you.
9 have accepted,
Fine.
it's only you. In a
It-
democracy, how do you
of
come
course-
to
of course
parliament?
it
But
is.
the one individual
How
has
do you
rights
come?
also.
Yes, but how do you come to
But
parliament?
that's different now. If you
That's
want to use
different.
voting system,
The-
You
the voting
cannot
system
have
and
different
the
parameters.
one
No.
individual is important
Yes.
and their rights.
And that is why
That's why
we
we
are
have
not.
rights of
That's why.
minorities
That's
in our
why we are not
constitution.
removing that right.
Honorable
We are
Betty,
not removing that right.
That is the arrogance of the government that we must resist. For you to believe that because you are government, therefore you are superior to the private person with his land. If you want
That
my
one is
land,
not the-
if you want my land, you've used your government value. He has determined the value to give me, and I've said no, this value is not fair and adequate to me. Go to the tribunal yourself. The tribunal will call me, and I show it what I think is fair, and it will determine what is fair. Then you pay it to me. I may accept it grudgingly. It could even confirm the valuation yourselves have brought. It could even confirm the valuation my value has brought. It could even confirm a third opinion valuation, or it could even confirm none of the three.
I
But
agree
it
with
should
you.
be
On
you.
the principle.
So
we
here's
all,
the thing.
We all agree.
Here's what
We
I
all
hear you,
ag-
lady
we-
and gentlemen,
We all
say.
agree, I think.
We
that-
all agree
Yes.
that it's important for government projects to take off. They are
Yes.
good for us, hospitals, schools, whatever the case might be. And we all agree that government should have a first hand and not just me, the private owner of the land. Because you see, what government wants to put in place is for the general good.
Yes.
Where perhaps the challenge is now is on how you get to acquire my land, that at the end of the day, I'm not disenfranchised. I'm not roughshod over. I want the school. I want the road. It's going to benefit me also. But that fairness should prevail. And Honorable, I hope you keep listening to
Yes.
everybody out there.
We
There's
shall
still a bit
listen
of
to
time.
all of you.
Because clearly, even the folks in Parliament who belong to the NRM are
Yes.
saying this one here. No, we have a challenge
And,
with.
and,
so
and with
let's
we
see how
are-
things
we
go.
shall
My
listen.
time is
and
up,
the
I'm
history
afraid.
of
We are
your government.
listening. We are
Actually,
listening.
the history of your government.
And our
is-
government, because you are in the government, as
Yes,
a member of
ex-
parliament,
exactly.
you are the
I am
second arm of
in
government.
the legislative
In
arm of
our-
government.
in our government.
But the history of this particular executive, and particularly,
So we are specified.
yes, and particularly remember when President Museveni was promulgating the constitution, he expressed his discomfort on articles in the constitution to deal with land. And these are articles 26 and 237. I hope your intention is not to reinstate the position as was during the land reform decree, where you want the state to be superior in terms of
I
land
didn't
ownership.
expect that from you as a lawyer, because
Well,
the proposal is before you. You
Oh,
have
bring
debated.
it. You-
You have
It has
debated
grown legs
it.
and arms,
You-
because
you-
now you're
you
telling
have-
us you have
you are
amended it
saying
before
you
taking it
support-
back to Parliament,
But
so-
now for you to bring that argument as a lawyer is being deceitful.
Bring the amendment you are talking about, because we've not looked at it. We are now
The one they have is the one you gave them
yeah,
previously.
we have the
No,
one on the constitutional
you see,
amendment.
for me,
Because now you're
mine-
saying as you go around, you listen to people, you have made some changes, but you've not presented them before Parliament.
Bring them,
We have-
and we'll discuss
We
them.
shall present.
Okay.
We are looking forward to that.
We
Lady
first
and
want to
gentlemen,
get all the views, make the law, integrate the views of others, and bring it.
Okay.
we are looking
Perfect.
forward. We'll have our cameras there.
Perfect.
Honorable Wilfred Niwagaba and Honorable Betty Amongi. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for talking to us this morning. Coming up is my opinion. Any serious Ugandan should be for the development of this country. We want to see the roads, we want to see the hospitals, we want to see the schools, and all these different things that are going to ameliorate our lives as Ugandans. And when I look at this whole proposal, it should be a good proposal because government wants to move, put in place development projects, and we as citizens should be able to back this up. But you see, when issues keep cropping up of how you get to acquire and the fairness and so on, let's listen to these issues. I get bothered when the president, is throwing a tantrum, so to speak, and he's saying, you media houses, you're hosting people that are opposed to these land reforms and so on. Your Excellency, you're not the only one who has views in this country. You might be the president, but you see, you are president of Ugandans. They gave you this mantle to be their servant. Okay, you don't believe that, so we can put it aside. But look, let's listen to everybody. And I think it's important that everybody puts out their voices. It's good the Minister of Lands is saying she is listening. Let her keep listening. Let the executive keep listening, because at the end of the day, you're having the law in place for Ugandans. Let's see how we come to a compromise. Hopefully we shall. That's the big story for today. Thank you for joining us. My name is Joel Senyonyi.